Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Connecting with Kim here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. I'm your host, Kim Droege. Thank you for joining us today. We're so thrilled to have you back. We have a great show coming up, but before we talk about that, I would like you to go to our Instagram, Facebook, and X accounts and like and follow so that you can find all the information about the show, the guests, the broadcast schedule, and of course my on-air wardrobe that comes from my sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay, from their store on North Willow here in Tampa. And I want you to go there and shop because they have great things, as you can tell from what I wear. And also, it supports their mission, which is providing safe spaces and empowering services to survivors of domestic violence and their children. And so that is the perfect lead-in for my guest today because I'm thrilled to have her back on Connecting with Kim. Our guest today on the show is Mindy Murphy, who is the CEO and president of the Spring of Tampa Bay. Welcome back, Mindy.
Thank you, Kim. I'm delighted to be back.
It's so great, and you have so many wonderful things coming up this year for the spring. So there was no way that we were not going to have you back and talk about all. And you can see, folks, we have this wonderful display of handbags because one of the fundraisers that the spring does, and Mindy will talk more about it, is handbags and happy hour. And we just had it, but it's an annual event, and we'll talk more about it. But some of these handbags came from that event, and so we're so thrilled. So there may be people out there, I don't know how because you know what a prolific poster I am, that don't know about Mindy Murphy, number one, and number two, who are really not familiar with the Spring of Tampa Bay. So let's start where we always start on the show, which is share a little bit about your life journey with our folks out there, and then that will bring us naturally to talk about all the wonderful things about the spring.
Sure. So I'll try not to go back to my birth, but but I have been the CEO for the Spring of Tampa Bay for 12 years now. The Spring is, I'm on a wall somewhere as the founder of the Spring of Tampa Bay, but we've been around for almost 47 years. So I would have been, about 6 years old at that point in time. But for the last 12 years, I've been the steward of the agency. And the Spring is the Certified Domestic Violence Center for Hillsborough County, part of a network of 41 certified domestic violence centers in the state of Florida. So there's a certified domestic violence center that serves every county, all 67 counties in Florida. And we have the same core services. And then some of the centers, like the Spring, that are a little bit bigger, have a broader basic community support, have a lot of additional services. But, our core services, we provide an emergency residential shelter, 128 beds to serve survivors and their children who are fleeing domestic violence. We have a 24/7 crisis hotline. We have a 12-unit apartment complex where survivors can live for up to a year in their own apartment with their kids as they get financially back on their feet. We also do some rapid rehousing, scattered site housing around the county for another about 45 survivor families because we know affordable housing is one of the hugest issues around the country, but particularly here in the Tampa Bay area as we've grown and become kind of one of the hot places to live. Housing is really hard and it's a huge barrier. How do you flee a domestic violence relationship and do so safely, particularly if you have kids, when you don't have a safe place to live or you can't afford a safe place to live. So we help reduce that barrier. We have a program called Camp Hope America. We're an affiliate of a national evidence-based camping and mentoring program. So kiddos here in Hillsborough County who have experienced domestic violence and are now, their parent has safely gotten out of that relationship. They're stable in their housing situation. Those kids still need services because the trauma can be long-lasting. And so the kids can go to a sleepaway camp free of charge for a week. They get to do fun things like canoeing and archery and zip lining and climbing walls and all that fun arts and crafts stuff. But there's an overlay of a evidence-based therapeutic component that helps those kids know that what happened to them does not define who they are for the rest of their lives. It's simply what happened to them, and that there are a whole bunch of other kids that are at camp just like them who've gone through that experience. You can emerge on the other side, and it's grounded in the science of hope and resiliency. So we do that, and then we have year-round programs for those kids. So everything from kids to the adults who experience domestic violence, we have a service for them, and we have an 8-person law firm locally, plus some attorneys around the state that provide free legal representation to survivors around the domestic violence experience.
Well, I tell everyone when we do the show that I'm so grateful that you're my sponsor. I'm so grateful for the services that you provide, and I also always emphasize that you've been doing this since the 70s, so you know what you're doing, and you're doing it well. And I think every decade, one of the best presentations I ever saw you do was at the fundraising event in October, Gift of Peace, and you went through the decades from the beginning of all the significant changes that happened.
Sure.
The expansion of services, the so on and so forth, facilities, et cetera, that happened during those decades. And now you're getting ready to experience another major change in the life cycle of the spring. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have 2 non-residential survivor services. So people think that you have to come into, live with us to be able to get services. And that's simply not true. We actually serve more people outside a shelter than we do inside a shelter. And for many years, we've owned a property out in Plant City. So we have a 12,000 square foot building there where we provide those services to survivors who don't necessarily need shelter right this moment. They still need the supportive resources that we can provide. Our place in Tampa, which also has housed our thrift store and donation center for many years, we have rented for many years. And the landlord about a decade ago sold, and the new landlord said, hey, I don't want to be in the landlord business. We eventually want to have this be a property that we use for our own business line. And they've been a wonderful partner. So we have been, kind of confronted with this need to figure out where do we go, and we want to be in control of our own destiny. Right. So with the help of a very generous lead donor, a $2 million gift, we were able to purchase a property. It's right off Air Cargo Road in the area that's known as Drew Park, which is the old Drew Field, the original Army Air Base. Before there was an Air Force, right? The Army in World War II provided the air support for the war, and they built Drew Field to be the air base. And over time, Drew Field became what we now know as Tampa International Airport. MacDill Air Force was built, but this was the original mess hall for the servicemen and servicewomen who were helping keep our country safe back in the 1940s. And so,
how exciting!
Yeah, it's really exciting.
I kind of like the life cycle of that.
Exactly.
Day.
I mean, it was of service to the country. Then for 40 years, it was a woman-owned plumbing supply company owned it, which I like. Go women-owned in a male-dominated industry. Yeah. And now we've acquired it. And so we're doing a massive renovation of the interior, and it will be repurposed to be able to be our donation center, our thrift store, which will be open to the public a couple days a week, but a couple days a week simply open to survivors to shop with the support of their advocate. So the survivor will have a really nice shopping experience, and then kind of sandwiched in the middle, kind of hidden in plain view, are our non-residential survivor services for the Tampa area. So we have licensed therapists on staff that can provide mental health counseling. We have the case management support. We have, support groups, all of that stuff. But it'll now be in a 21,000 square foot building with ample parking and a safe location, a really nice experience. So, and it gives us some room for additional growth. Our long-term dream, we might even eventually have a service animal there. So, you come in for some support, and you might have, Sunny, the service dog there at your feet to give you some comfort. So we're excited.
It's so exciting. And let's back up for a second
Sure.
and make sure that everybody understands, because they've heard me many times on this show talk about the Spring Boutique located at the corner of Swan and Henderson.
Yeah.
And that was where I got the clothes for the show from. Now, the Spring Boutique at the corner of Swan and Henderson closed at the end of last year, 2023, because that person, the landlord, wanted their space back. And so then everything was consolidated into the thrift store, which was located on North Willow here in Tampa, and also where the services were. And now that is going to be taken over by that landlord and converted to something else. So now all of these locations are now going to be consolidated in a new location in Drew Park.
Absolutely.
Where you will, like you said, own it and control your own destiny.
Yeah, control. And it's so interesting because it's this massive building that is designed to be a warehouse, but it's got a wooden floor. So the first question that I was asked when I came in the door by the broker, who was the selling agent, I and my board facilities chair walk in the door, and he looks at me and says, "How heavy are you?" And I was like, what are you like?
I'm like, you don't ask that question of a woman.
A really personal
question.
And my facilities chair, who works in the commercial real estate space, he starts laughing. He said, "They're asking are we going to be using forklifts, right, heavy equipment in this warehouse because it's a wooden floor?" I was like, "No, we're not. We're going to be using volunteers, because we have amazing corporate volunteers and individual volunteers. As many as 20 or 30 people a day are volunteering at our thrift store donation center." I said, "And we might have a pallet jack, right?" Right. That's about as heavy as we get, which, then they said, "This is perfect." So it was almost as if, that building was just put right in front of us because we were the perfect tenant for it.
Right.
And the way it's laid out with kind of the 3 spaces,
right.
it addresses every need. So for the donor experience, right, because all of the stuff that we bring into the thrift store donation center and we brought into the boutique on Swan, it's all donated goods. And sometimes it's gently used donated goods. Sometimes it's brand new, like people are doing drives
with the price tags
with price tags on it, specifically, oftentimes for the survivors themselves, and everything gets used there. So if somebody brings in something that we can't sell or we can't give to a survivor, survivors aren't interested in it, we can't sell it. We've got a scrap metal person, we've got a bulk person who takes the soiled things that have a tear in it. We find something, so everything gets used. The money that we raise there goes right back into our programs, offsets the cost of running this operation. But so much of this stuff comes in the door specifically for survivors, because when they move out of the shelter and they're moving into a new safe apartment free of the abuser, right? They need beds. The kids need beds. They need dressers. They need pots and pans.
Everything.
They need everything. And this really gives us the ability to have all of that, but then also still have this nice experience. We'll have an air-conditioned portion of the retail sales area that will be for the boutique, right? So there will be a boutique area again that's kind of really clearly defined, like the old boutique on Henderson, and it's just going to be a really great way to raise awareness and to raise money for our services.
I'm so excited because, I had such a great experience at the boutique from the very beginning. All the people that worked there were just fabulous.
Right.
And because I just kind of got breeze in and, they gave me a little rack and I would kind of breeze through the whole store picking out stuff, put it on the rack, pick out jewelry, everything to go with the outfits. And then before I left, I would sort through everything and take a final look at it. Yeah. Because in my mind, sometimes, like this skirt came from the boutique, but I have to add
blouse.
a top to it. Yeah, exactly. You have to add something to it.
Right.
So you're standing there looking at it, and inside your head, you're going, okay, I can make, with what I have at home, I can make an outfit with that, right?
Yeah.
And so everyone is so, and same at Willow. The people at Willow are just so nice and so sweet. And I'm there a lot of times when there's people from the neighborhood and whatnot shopping, and sometimes the people are busy, so I just help out. If I'm there, I was like, okay, well, let me tell you all about this. It's so wonderful. So, but I love the idea that you're now going to be consolidated into one space that you control.
Yeah, it's going to be so helpful. And when our annual handbags and happy hour event is always in April, and this year a friend of mine very generously donated a vacant house that she had recently acquired, and we used that for a month as our prep area for handbags, right? Because we've got committee members, getting everything set up, putting auction baskets together. We have built in the ability to be able to convert a room that normally will be used for like our volunteer check-in at the donation center. For the month of handbags, it will be repurposed and simply be where the committee is able to do all of that secure, right, under our control. We can come and go as we need to.
Right.
So it really allows us the greatest flexibility to make sure that we are, both meeting the existing need and being able to nimbly grow as necessary to meet, new needs that survivors have, right? We know that we have the ability to have more space for therapists, and we're in track to get a new therapy grant to be able to actually add a couple more therapists to our service array in July, and we've got a space to be able to have office space, right? Office space is in great demand, and when you're meeting with a survivor, you need to have a private space, right? You can't have 3 people trying to meet with 3 survivors all at once. And so,
absolutely.
It's all about the capacity to grow and then leveraging the community relationships we have. We've got some wonderful partners in the community.
You really do. If you're just joining me now and connecting with Kim, my guest in the chair is the lovely and wonderful Mindy Murphy, who is the CEO and president of the Spring of Tampa Bay, who provides safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children. And they're also a sponsor for my show, for which I'm extremely grateful. So we're talking about their new plans for their new facility. So let's talk about how the new facility is coming along and when we might look forward to having that open.
So we are really excited because we're in renovation now. It took a minute to get there, but long minute. But our GC, Fred Lay from Construction Services Inc., he and his whole team, I can't say enough great things about them and just how wonderful they are to work with. They're so like tuned into our mission and aware of what it is we're doing, and kind of see this as a higher, purpose, right? It's not just a regular construction job.
Right.
It's a job that's going to transform lives in our community. And so we are on track. They might even be a little bit ahead of schedule, but our target date for the certificate of occupancy is early October. So sometime in the month of October, towards the end of or the beginning of November, we will have our grand opening. We'll have a couple grand openings, right? It also happens to be October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, right? Nationally and internationally. So so that's a beautiful time. It'll be a little crazy for us because we also have our Gift of Peace lunch every year in October. So we'll have a Gift of Peace lunch, and we'll have a grand opening of our new building. And we'll probably do a couple grand openings, one for the donors who are helping make this possible. If viewers out there feels compelled to give, let me know. Reach out to me. I'm easy to find. But the reality is that we'll have a kind of a donor focused, and then we'll have a kind of community focus, like, hey, all our shoppers and all the people who dropped off, and come over here and see. It's not that far. It's tucked away right behind the New York Yankees Stadium. It's about 3 minutes from there, about four or 5 minutes from Raymond James Stadium, just around the corner from the HCC Dale Mabry campus. So we're still in a really good area adjacent to the downtown area, adjacent to South Tampa, but also it allows us to really meet unmet need out in town and country. And of course, you go the other way on Hillsborough and you're into Sulphur Springs, and you go just a little ways up Dale Mabry and you're right into Carrollwood. So we're really kind of centrally located to be able to provide service to just about anyone who needs us.
Well, and you've had a long history of evolving over time.
Sure.
It started out in a house, right? Started out in somebody's house.
Yeah.
And it went from there. And so, needs change over time.
Sure.
We're a growing area, as we both know, and all that comes with the pain of growth, because it's good stuff, but it's also, challenging times.
Yeah.
So I think that's being the master of your own destiny, not being subjected to landlords and their plans and whatnot. Not that they were bad.
No, we had landlords. We're really great. We had great landlords.
You had great relationships, but this is just really wonderful that now you are going to have this all consolidated and everything is going to be under your control, and you probably have room for expansion.
Yeah, we
where
do.
You are.
Yeah, and
which is also important to plan for.
Yeah, and the reality is, people don't realize this because of what we do, and we're so protective of those we serve because they're in danger. Mm-hmm. People don't realize we have 7-8 program sites, so we are scattered around Hillsborough County. Some of our sites have to remain confidential, right?
Confidential.
But one of our service sites, again, one's in Plant City, one's in the USF area, one's in the Ybor area. So we have a lot of ways to meet people and to be kind of up in a community and adjacent. But it is really nice now that we're down to only one area do we actually lease property. So everywhere else we now own, which does allow us to control and upgrade, right? So our Peace Village apartments, our 12-unit apartments, we're almost finished. All 12 have gotten renovated. They needed some help. They were from the 90s, and now they've got granite countertops, and they've got we're putting in dishwashers finally. So we're putting in the modern amenities, right, for the survivors, because again, you want them to have the same experience of an apartment that feels good and feels modern that we have when we lease a space.
Well, and also domestic violence. We all need to keep in mind domestic violence doesn't know any class, socioeconomic level, religion, or anything like that.
Right.
It runs the gamut.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with survivors whose family net worth is $500 million. And I've worked with folks whose net worth is $50. So, and everywhere in between. And the problems with domestic violence are universal. The challenges can be different depending on your circumstances. Right. But they are constant because the ways in which batterers behave, the tactics they use are very eerily similar across people, across place, across time. And so, survivors need help economically. 98 to 99% of domestic violence also includes economic abuse. Right. Right. So,
it's a way of controlling.
Right. Yeah. So the survivor may be working. The survivor may be the main breadwinner, but that money comes in, and and she can't access it. Right. Because the abuser's taken away that ability. And so, you have to meet people where they are, but we want to make sure that, the services that we're providing are something that, I would want to access. So I'm very big on that, right? I want to make sure that people feel like they feel the love that our staff are, we got almost 100 staff, and they are passionate about what we do. and so mission focused. And I want people, who come and seek services at the worst possible time in their life to feel the love that we have for them.
And that they're not alone.
Yeah,
I love how you had that
alone.
on the building at
Yeah.
Henderson and Swan. I love that, the murals that were painted.
Right.
You're not alone. You are not alone.
Yeah, and I love that our former landlord has kept that there, right? So I'm like, may he keep it there for a really long time. Yeah. Right? Because we do want people to know you are not alone.
You are not alone.
Right? You did not deserve what happened to you. We are here for you when you're ready. You don't have to, have left the relationship to seek our services. We want you to be safe, and sometimes that means that safe might mean that you're going to stay in that relationship a little longer, but let's talk about how you do that safely.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what your strategy is to exit that relationship when you're ready.
Right.
Right, and know that you have all the resources of the Spring of Tampa Bay, thanks to the amazing community that we have behind us. Our community is so generous to us, and
well, you have developed so many great relationships, Mindy, and partnerships. Now, we don't want to let time get away before we talk about, you have 2 major fundraisers a year, so let's talk about those quickly, because I don't want to, because one of them's right here in front of us, and I don't want to miss that. So let's talk about that.
Yep. So Handbags and Happy Hour happens every April. This was our 7th annual Handbags and Happy Hour. It is a grand and glorious time. We outgrew our old space, and we actually moved into the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino this year, into their event space, and it was magical. I can't say enough great things about the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. They've just been great partners.
They are amazing.
Yeah, and it's such a nice venue, and and it allows us room to grow that event. Yeah, it's a huge event. I always joke, I was about 800 of my closest friends. Right?
I know, it was like sensory overload.
600, I think we had 650 auction items. So we just had it, right? So all the items that I would have been able to bring, right, they've all been sold and people have acquired them. But these are some bags from years past or from this year, right?
I won this one.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I also won.
She won the Chanel.
I have to say, I won the grand prize mystery bag. I never thought that would happen to me, but and I was obliterating it when I went on stage. So these are beautiful bags that this is my girlfriend's bag that she won. So,
and I have, these are a couple from years gone by. There's a Kate Spade, a Stella McCartney, a Coach, Michael Kors. So, those brands, as well as we have all the luxury, like Yves Saint Laurent, Chloe,
Chanel, Chloe,
Prada,
everything you can imagine.
Christian, this cute little Christian Dior bag that I'm obsessed with.
I know. We both were.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so fun. So that happens every April. So, just know that that's in our
in the arc of things you have to plan
exactly. And then in October we do the more traditional gift of peace. It's we're almost at our 35th. We've been doing this forever. Gift of peace luncheon. So we do that at Armature Works every year, and we have someone typically speak about the experience that they had receiving services at the Spring, or sometimes, like this year, I think it's going to be an attorney who served on our board, who pro bono represented a survivor in a very, very, very awful and blessedly not tragic, because she lived, case, but helped her and her kids, and he's going to talk about that. And then we talk about what's going on at the Spring, and so 2 opportunities to really get connected to mission, 2 opportunities if you want to get involved as a volunteer. Those are ways you can do that. You can also always volunteer at our donation center and thrift store. Those are the main ways. And then we do use corporate groups from time to time, volunteering in our shelter facility. That those are a little bit more closed volunteer opportunities because of safety concerns. But just a lot of fun, but focused on our mission, even within Handbags and Happy Hour, where people really just want to bid and buy handbags and socialize with one another. We stop for about 15 minutes and we do a mission moment, and we talk about how important this work is, and the reason why we do the work we do. And it's usually somebody who's survived, or family members talking about somebody who hasn't.
Like it was this year.
Like it was this year.
Like it was this year with the Gabby's parents.
Yeah, Gabby Petito's parents.
Gabby's Petito's parents. I think we were all really. So I had the honor of being able to, in the last year's cycle, to attend the Gift of Peace luncheon, which was fabulous. And like I said, I appreciated so much the video of the decades of development in the Spring of Tampa Bay and what they're offering these folks who badly need it. Unfortunately, we still have to keep talking about it. And then the Handbags at Happy Hour, which I tell you, I was just overwhelmed. I mean, you've never seen so many incredible handbags in one location. I mean, but it's not just handbags. There's jewelry, there's accessories, there's shoes, there's gift baskets,
packages.
it's It was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, I was in a room with a lot of people that I knew, women that I knew, and I swear to God, I went through the whole evening not see. They texted me. They're like, "What? I saw you across the room." Yeah. You know, it's like, right? Or you see them in the picture at the end of the night. You're like,
when I was up on stage speaking, I was like, oh, look, there's, I mean, because I invite people to come. I'm a sponsor myself. And I tell everyone, I'm like, I'm going to be the worst sponsor. Please come as my guest. I'm going to be an awful sponsor because I'm going to be running, I have to staff the event, right? But I was on stage, and at the end of my remarks, I was like, I saw like my son's godmother. I was like, oh, there she is, right? So I run down off the stage. I'm like, I'm going to find her and say thank you for being here, because she made a nice gift to the heart. So I was like, I will find you, Kristen, and I did. But it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of people. But you know, what a great way. Domestic violence is such a a dark and awful thing, and it's in the 21st century in the United States. It's just it's so maddening and sad that we still have so much domestic violence. Men can be victims too, for sure.
Absolutely.
But disproportionately.
And there were men there that night.
And there were men there that night.
Yep.
But it's disproportionately a crime that is perpetrated against women and against kids. And it's such a dark subject, but it's so nice to have an event where we can still acknowledge that. So many people are in the room to support our cause, but we can do so in a way that is a little bit more joyful and encouraging and hopeful for the future. Right, because we end domestic violence helping one victim at a time, and we end it the more we get that awareness out. And I've said for many years, right, women are fierce and we get things done. And for almost, for in some instances, almost 50 years for us. Our 50th will be in 2027. But the earliest, centers are maybe 52, 53 years old. Women have been focusing on ending domestic violence for over 50 years now. If we were going to end it by ourselves, we would have by this point, right? Because women get stuff done. Men, we have got to engage our brothers and our husbands and our and our sons and our nephews and our neighbors. We have to engage men in ending domestic violence, because disproportionately, although most men are great guys, there's a small segment of men who are perpetrators, and men have got to start saying to those guys that they know who are behaving badly on the golf course, disparaging women, just treating women awfully.
You got to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
And call them out.
Yeah, you got to call them out.
And say, dude, that is not acceptable.
It is not acceptable, right? We're not going to keep being friends. I'm here to support you if you want to make a change, but I'm not going to sit idly by and let you say these things about your wife, about women in general, right? I am here to say enough is enough. This is not acceptable. Relationships should be built on love and respect, not on denigration and terrorism.
Exactly.
So.
Well, we are out of time, literally. So, Mindy, thank you for being my guest today and connecting with Kim. It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
So, folks, you can catch the audio of our show. I can't remember if I mentioned it at the top of the show, so I'm going to say it again. On Sun Radio, 96.3 FM, and on your favorite streaming platform. And I appreciate you tuning in today. We have to all work together. And there wasn't a single person in that room at Handbags and Happy Hour that wasn't there for that reason, to end domestic violence and to support those survivors of domestic violence. So we'll be back with another edition of Connecting with Kim. Thank you for joining us today. So long.